Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's community meeting. Today's Thursday, May 27th, and I'm sure that more people will be joining just in a second, as I can already see them. I have to promote some more folks as they will be presenting today. And yeah, we got a very exciting topic on the agenda. And let's just walk through this. So we are following here the CNCF Code of Conduct as a CNCF sandbox project. So that basically means please be nice to each other. And if you feel any offensive behavior, just please reach out to the maintainers of the project. Also, please make sure to put in your names in the attendee list here. I will make sure to also send out the link again in the chat for everyone that joined a little bit later. We have quite some folks joining today, so this is great. I think there are no action items from last week we have to discuss here. Everything was clear. One part that I want to highlight again in this meeting is that Keptn 8.3 has been released just last Friday. We link here also the release notes. My request is please upgrade your Keptn installations. You will do it in the same way as you always do with the Keptn CLI. It's basically one line that you execute Keptn upgrade, and it will upgrade your cluster from 8.2 to 8.3. All the installation or upgrade instructions you can also find on the Keptn website. So this is basically the big update around Keptn. And for today, we have two of our friends from the Keptn community joining. It's Dita and Dominic, and they will share what they did and what they developed. They call it the Job Executor Service. I already saw a sneak preview of this. I'm really excited to see more. And I think both of them have already joined. Sorry, I think there was a mix up in the Zoom link, but thanks for joining. And I will stop my screen sharing and we'll hand over to the two of you for this to share. And then also thanks for putting up another issue here on the document, on the meeting document. We will take this after the presentation of Dita and Dominic. So here we go.
Okay, hi everyone. Let me quickly share my screen. All right. Do you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Dita, and together with Dominic, we will tell you some more about the Job Executor Service. Yeah, so that's basically a new Keptn service. And before actually telling you what it is and what it can do, I want to tell you some more about, okay, why did we implement it in the first place, and tell you some more about that. And with that, I would like to take you on a journey. And that's basically our journey, how we created this Keptn service. Basically, I guess all of you already know this. The Keptn team actually did a great job with providing the Keptn service template. So the only thing you need to do is to go to GitHub, clone the Keptn service template, and then you basically have everything you need for creating the Keptn. For creating your own Keptn service if you want to extend Keptn. So that's really great. So what you basically, I guess you all of you know that you get a boilerplate of everything you need. So you have your Keptn service, you have a distributor next to as a sidecar, which takes care of the talking to the eventing system. And the only thing you actually really need to do is you have some boilerplate, you fill in your code at the respective places within your code to actually handle events. Then probably what you also want to do is you want to load some files from the configuration service, and use it in whatever way you want. Then you might write some code to execute your program. So Deme and Lucas are classical examples where you actually execute your test in process within your service. And at the end, when you're done, you're saying, well, you're responding with a finished event, and everything works perfectly. So that's super easy. And yeah, thanks to the Keptn team, it's really easy. And I believe also Christian created the second template this week for writing a Keptn service in Python. So very, very nice.
But it's not done yet. It's just yeah.
Ah, okay. But yeah, so it's the point here is it's really easy to get started. And so when you actually are done with the first service, you say, well, you actually want to run something else additionally with Keptn. So what you do, you actually do the same thing again and write a second Keptn service. And then you also want to do that again, and you're writing yet another Keptn service. And actually writing your code is not the only thing you need to do. So yeah, for every service, you basically write your code. You actually need to make sure it's well tested and others can use it. You actually also create or adapt the Kubernetes manifest so that it's actually deployable, and then you release the version of it. But now comes the crux. Afterwards, actually, it's an open source project, and I guess every one of you knows what comes with that. Namely, maintaining an open source project is actually a lot of work, and it requires some effort. So you actually need to maintain the code. You need to make sure it's up to date. Also, ideally follow the newest features of Keptn, because the new feature you could potentially also use in your service, which makes your life easier. And of course, all the work together with the community, follow up on issues, accept pull requests, coordinate some feature development, and so on and so on. So there is actually a lot of things which come with it, besides writing code. And so the question now is, wouldn't it be cool actually to avoid the maintenance effort? Because the more services you have, the more code you need to maintain. And this, of course, scales linearly. And wouldn't it be cool to actually be able to react to any Keptn event for the thing you want to do, and to trigger any workload, any containerized workload with Keptn? And ideally, would also be cool if when your Keptn service is not currently executing some task or something, that it doesn't contain any resources on the Kubernetes cluster itself. Yeah, you probably already guessed it. The Job Executor Service does all of that. Yeah, wow. Yeah, so, and I want to quickly go over the difference to a classical service, or what we did, by showing you the architecture and the config of the service side by side. So we actually start with the picture you already have seen. So you have your Keptn service next to it. There is the sidecar, there is the distributor, and you have a config alongside your service. And in the config, you actually specify the actions the service should perform. So for example, here we want to run bash, and we want to react to an event which is events.action.triggered. And what the generic or the job executor service now does is it's running this action within a new Kubernetes job it spins up. And yeah, for the action, you can basically define a couple of tasks it should execute. So for example, here we want to run a hello world, and the goal is that this hello world is executed within the Kubernetes job. And yeah, within the Kubernetes job, you have a init container which runs before you're actually before the job. I'll come back to that in a minute. And you actually can specify which image you want to run and which command is executed within the image. So for example, here we say, well, we want to run cat of some file. And you're by now probably wondering, okay, where does the file come from? And why is there such a hole within the config section? Yeah, you guessed it. You can actually specify a list of files you want to attach. And the way it works is that the init container actually calls the Keptn configuration service for you, and it's downloading these files and putting them into a volume, which is attached to the init container itself and the Kubernetes job. And this volume is simply an empty directory, and it's mounted in the path /Keptn. Yeah, and with that, you basically defined your own workload you want to run with Keptn, which with just the simple lines of configuration. You didn't have to write any code. Yeah. And yeah, that was a very simple example of what the Job Executor Service can do. And now I'll hand over to Dominic, who will tell you more about in a demo.
So I will share my screen. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
So we prepared a simple demo with 3 pretty much events that the executor service should handle. Here we have our shipyard YAML file, just some basic stuff in there. Promotion, not relevant for this demo. Then we have a simple deployment step that will be handled by the normal Keptn Helm service. But for the other 3 tasks here, they will all be handled by the Keptn executor service. Here we have a test event. This should execute some locust tests that we already had prepared for the locust service and already were running in the Keptn locust service, but now we want to do it with the executor service. And then a simple print to files event. That's pretty much what Dieter already showed in the slides, just printing some simple file out that can then be displayed in the bridge as log. And then we have also prepared an end-to-end test that's using Test Cafe. So totally new stuff, currently not a Keptn service. And there we will run some UI tests. And let's take a look at the configuration. First one is for the print files. So here we have the event where the executor service listens on, and if the event matches, it executes the underlying task. A list of files that should be made available in the job, then obviously the image needed, and then the command that gets executed in the job as well. So how does this look like on the bridge? So did a test one already. Here we have the print files event, and when the job finishes, it returns with the result event, and the message is pretty much the output of the whole job. In that regard, we just printed the Helm YAMLs file that was already available, which was used for the deployment. So nothing that amazing. Then let's jump to the locust configuration. That's a bit more sophisticated. So for the test event here, we have already also defined the test strategy, HERF, and we only want to run the job if the test strategy is actually health. So we can define here an additional measure. It's named JSON path that goes on a specific property, and if the property matches this value specified here, we want to run the task. And then we have some more files here. Since it's low-cost, we have our test file here and our configuration file. That's some additional parameters used for the low-cost command execution. And then that we actually need to run our tests, we also need some sort of host where we can run our test against. And Keptn is so nice and already sends us the host variable in the event. And it's actually located under this JSON path. So we can use an environment block to define environment variables that use some sort of JSON path, and the values of these variables will then be available in the command execution. So you can just say, okay, please localhost use the host variable to run the test against it. And then some more fancy stuff. Maybe we want to execute a different file, but the test file for each strategy. And if we run these tests, then it looks like this on the bridge. We have this here. So pretty much the output of the job, just standard locust output. Yeah, everything was successful. And then let's jump to the last example we have prepared. That's Test Cafe. Pretty much similar test tool. Also want to run it in headless mode, obviously, since we're using an image. And we also have a host variable that we need for the tests. Can quickly show you the test file. This is just some simple, okay, please get on Google. That's the active deployment URL that gets sent by the URL. Type in Keptn, search for it, and then display the result. And we have that here. So, and the result is URL. So everything worked here out as well. And that's pretty much it. Obviously, Dieter, we have to have here an additional event. Do you know more about it?
Very nice log output here.
Yeah, and we actually pushed the code today to the Keptn sandbox, to the repository Jürgen provided, and also released the first version. So it's 0.1.0. Yeah, just go to the GitHub page or to the GitHub repo, check it out, and any contributions are more than welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
That really deserves some applause here, because I think this is great. Please, Dominic, please continue the screen sharing, because I think we might get a couple of questions. And I also have a question here. Oh, we even got the first comment here from Christian. That's really super cool stuff. Yeah, same here. I really have the same impression here, that it's really cool. What I would be in the beginning interested in, kind of how to, from the perspective of a Keptn user, not so much a Keptn developer, but more a Keptn user, how to use it. Can we please go back to the shipyard file and take a look at the shipyard file, and then also on the config.yaml, and kind of see the mapping between, let's say, the test and the test task here, or the print files task here, and how it maps into the config.yaml. Can you maybe explain this?
Yeah, let's take the test. I think it's a nice example here. So for this test, we have here 2 different Python files currently, and we wanted to execute the health.py file. So we had here a test strategy for that, and pretty much the developer just put itself code in this file, and that should be everything he needs to do. And he also needs to make sure, oh no, not for that one. He doesn't need to define any extra host files. That's done over the command line. And here we have then this will use the environment mapping to take the test strategy value from the event, from the Keptn event that gets sent to us. That's pretty much the same value that's configured here. And then use that one to get the Python file we want to execute, or the test they want to execute, and just take this one. For this example, this we could just drop here. It would not really need it, that we would need an extra matching, just handle please the health events. We could actually also handle all events here. And let's say if someone defines here another test stage, let's say we're functional, and we have here a functional Python file. So it just would take the test strategy and now run the functional test files. So it's actually quite flexible in that regard.
Really cool. Dominic, what you're showing us right now is a kind of filter on the subscriptions of an event.
Yeah.
And yeah, I definitely see the need for having this, and also a requirement for Keptn Core to make it possible to filter events based on properties the event contains.
Yeah. Actually, one feature I didn't mention so far, you can also do wildcard matching here. So something like this would also be possible. That would maybe make sense in some regard. Maybe you want to send notifications for each finished event where the result was failed. You want to send out some notifications to Slack, maybe, hey, please developer, look into this. Something didn't work here. That would also be really easy to configure.
That's pretty cool. And actually, the test that you just highlighted is the actual matching I was pointing to earlier. It's basically the shKeptn.event.test is the task that is defined in the shipyard file. So this is how, how they map. And we will see the same for, maybe we can have a look at print files. Then we should see also the print files task somewhere here. Yes, we see the print files.
Exactly. Yeah, that's pretty much that filter. Yeah.
That's really cool. And then one follow-up question on this is, let's assume locus tests are running for 5 minutes and then failing. How do you map back the status of an execution to Keptn? Is there any way that you can kind of make a distinction between jobs that were running successfully and jobs that failed? So for example, if the deployment URL is not there and locus config could not be executed?
Yeah, it's actually, if the job execution fails, we pretty much check for the status already and send a finished event with a failed status back. I can maybe show you. I'm pretty sure I have some tests gone wrong in here. that would look like this. You pretty much get the log output of the job container or pod, and hopefully this helps to resolve the issue, whatever you did wrong. That's what we have so far in that regard.
Cool. So it always takes the log output that goes to standard out, I guess, and wraps it in the message, sends it back to Keptn along with the status. So in Keptn, if it should go on to the next stage, we will have it somewhere. Result failed.
Yeah, it will set the correct result and status code values and the message. That's the log output of the job.
That's already the log output of the whole sequence, but it should also be in the end-to-end one.
That's the end-to-end one. Yeah.
Yeah, really cool. Really cool. And can we again go back, please, to your IDE? Because there are so many things that I think should be really highlighted. And please, all the others from the community, feel free to ask your questions. I already see some of them in the chat, and I will just address them in a second. But what I want to highlight here is, let's say, for Locust. So we do have a Locust integration that was actually a lot of code for the Locust integration was contributed by some of you that are here in this community meeting. So I see Dominic, I see Tita, I see Christian. You all contributed to the Locust service. And here I see it's using the official Locust image. So basically the integration, if I now want to use, instead of Locust, if I want to use, let's say, Artillery or some other test service, I would just use their official image, learn how to use their command line, and basically that's all I need to know. And write the test, yeah.
Yeah, obviously. That's what we pretty much did with Testcafe yesterday. So I had no idea how to use Testcafe. Just wrote it up in some minutes and it worked. So really easy to use.
Cool. Really cool. Let me just take a look in the chat, what's coming in. Erwin says, awesome. And he also likes that you use the Testcafe and how it shows up in the logs. So thanks for this comment. So another question, if we think about all these test integrations, I think it's a great example to have the test integrations here. Would it be possible to also kind of, if it's not erroring the Locust service, but the Locust service itself or Locust, the binary itself, can give you an indication if the tests have succeeded or not. So I guess this could also be taken into account somehow.
Maybe the return value, you mean, maybe of the command execution.
Of the command execution, yeah, exactly. Or would it be the same in the
pretty much the same return value, whatever. What we currently expect a zero return value, everything is fine, and then the event is also fine, and if not, we just error the event. So I mean, there could definitely maybe be some improvements how we handle return values in that regard.
Yeah, and can there be some kind of a list of commands to be executed if we need to prepare, like before the tests, maybe we need to prepare an environment and we want to do it in the same. So I can, here in line 25, it's one command, but can it be an array or a list, or would that not work?
I think that should be easy possible, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, then you would simply define a couple of tasks, because task itself is also a list. So that would be an option, that you actually say, well, I'm going to write the result of the first task to your volume and then use it later on. That would be an option. It would also be an option to actually use a different init container. So we made the init container configurable. That would also work. So it's up to you what you where you want to do the preparation.
And then we have one question from the community, from Editor. You can also, I allow to unmute. So if you want to ask the question directly to Dominic and Dieter, please go ahead. Otherwise, I will read it for you. And maybe I read the question, and if there is a follow-up question. Oh, I see you unmuted yourself. Please go ahead.
Asking that this can be used for running a webhook, like if we attach the webhook file and then we name that event like sh-keptn.trigger.star, and that like for star we can replace it. A user can define which event he want to get notification and then triggered, then that execution will run. So my question is, like, we can do like that?
I don't hardly understand you, but from what I can understand, you wanted to use the wildcard filter.
Like, and I can make my script of webhook execution and then attach that script to the files, and user can define which event he want to get triggered, and then we can send that hook by calling that script.
If I understand correctly, it's a little bit difficult from the connection point of view to get the clear audio on our end. But if I understand correctly, the question is, can this job executor also be used to trigger webhooks? So instead of running a test to trigger, to send the payload to some other, let's say, other external website and do this via webhook.
I mean, you can clearly do that. If you have all the information you need in the event, you can just get it out of the event pretty much with environment variables, and then maybe write your own image, or if there's an existing image, and just use a command there and call a webhook. So that should be easy possible. Yeah.
Yeah, I also think that the missing part, because there is an open issue around the webhook, and maybe this is that is an issue that Aditya is interested in. That the interesting part for a webhook is then how to use the data from the cloud event and to transform it in a way that it's in the payload, the format of a payload, that the external service can use it. If we think about, let's say we want to send a comment on a Dynatrace problem, or maybe annotate something, that it has to be a specific payload, a specific format. And if we can have some kind of how to rewrite the Keptn cloud event into a payload that can be understood by a third-party service, then this is also very powerful. That leads me to a question. Does this always automatically send a .started and .finished event?
Currently it does that, but we only have an issue open where we want to change is pretty much okay. Like for a notification service, we just want to hear on events and don't send like started or finished events. So just a silent mode pretty much that can be configured for each task, maybe something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that would make sense, because if we would also listen to, let's say, .finished events, for example, evaluation finished events, you would not want to return with the started and finished.
Exactly. Yeah.
Then we have a couple of questions from Christian. Maybe Christian, if you want to ask them directly.
Yeah, sure. So first, as a remark, please don't use images without specifying tags ever.
That's correct.
Because this will just break your pipeline and you will not know why. Just use a tag like locust has 1.5.3. Then the first question would be, which Kubernetes namespace are you starting your jobs in?
Currently, we use the namespace it was installed in, so the Keptn namespace default wise, but there was also some thoughts to be able to use a totally different namespace as long as we have the rights for that.
Mm-hmm. And well, the follow-up question to that is obviously, what Kubernetes security context does your service require, and what security context are your jobs running in? So as an example, would I be able to create a job that uses kubectl and just performs whatever action on a cluster?
I think Dieter is equipped to answer this.
No, actually, we limit the security context a lot for the job. Yeah, so yeah, the one of the issues we faced early on was that the file permissions of the files which are stored in your volume were not correctly set, and actually root was the owner. So that's why we said, well, we're actually setting the run as user and run as group setting for the Kubernetes job. Yeah, and also the I can't remember anymore if we set a different service account for the Kubernetes job itself. But yeah, you're right. Makes sense to actually limit that one, because this, of course, if you say, well, you're going to allow everything in your cluster, then yeah, the user can do basically anything in your Kubernetes cluster which you don't want.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But I'm also just thinking about, let's say, edge cases where you want to deploy the service and really just modify something in kubectl. So, for instance, Litmus service is essentially a kubectl run or kubectl apply. And for that reason, we've created Litmus service and do all the things in there, obviously. And Litmus does need the well, a service account that can modify certain things. So maybe it's a good limitation that the executor service that you have here cannot do it, and it's limited to that. So yeah.
What actually would make sense is to limit it by default, that it cannot do anything, but you have the option as a user to set a different service account for the Kubernetes job.
Yeah,
that would be an option.
And maybe as a last question still, are there any memory and or CPU limits on the jobs?
Yes, there are. There are a lot of to-dos at exactly the spot where the job gets spun up. And it's these to-dos all include, we should make this configurable. So when deploying the job executor service, you should be able to set these as a user.
Yeah, I'm really just asking also for the question because in the Keptn core team, we've been presented with the fact that some people have namespaces with quotas, and then, well, if you don't have quotas defined, it doesn't matter if they're 20 gigabytes or 20 megabytes, but if you don't have them defined, some pods won't start at all.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. since in the past, I raised this issue. Yeah, we're essentially facing the same problem. So we have resource quotas on our namespaces, which of course means that all pods running within the namespace need to have resource quotas as well.
All right, thanks. Very nice service. Great job.
Really cool. And thanks, Christian, for all your questions. Then more related also to the usage perspective of this. Here I can see, and if you already explained it, then sorry for asking this question again, but I was also at least taking a look at the chat. Here we can see two tasks that are actually run in the locust part. So there is one called run locust health test and the other one prepare results. How do you tackle this if there are multiple ways? Will the results of the execution will be kind of concatenated and then sent back as one to Keptn?
I think Dieter, do you know exactly how this is done?
Yes, they are concatenated, I believe. I believe. I'm not sure.
So there will be first the first container starting with the image locust.io/locust. It will run its job. It will get removed as a Kubernetes, just like as a Kubernetes job. It will be completed, and then there will be. Sorry, my cat is going crazy. I'll be back in a second. Hello, this is the cat, and here is the window, and he has to go outside. Okay, but it can be different ways, like first a logging or as I said earlier, a preparation step and a logging and some other execution. So it's not only one execution per event or per job, let's say.
Yeah, they're pretty much summarized together.
So maybe as a challenge for our community that's listening in, some of you might know that we have the Helm service with the user-managed deployments. And I'd like to raise the challenge of doing the Helm service with the user-managed deployment in exactly that code that is here, because I think it's possible.
Yeah, so there are a lot of questions. This service is so new, so we did not have time yet to read the documentation. So sorry for that. So we are kind of shooting all these questions to you. But regarding the thing that Christian just said, is it possible to also define a wildcard for the files? So to say, let's fetch all the .py files in the locust directory?
Currently, that's not possible, but we already talked about this, so definitely on how to do this.
Or a whole folder, because that might be needed for the Helm.
Exactly, maybe you just want to add all the locust files and not the specific one.
Yeah,
because
might also be a Keptn API thing that we need to implement there as well, because I think we only support fetching one file or a direct a list of files from a folder, but we don't allow fetching, let's say, by wildcard or
One question regarding that. If I go to the config service and say, give me the files for locust, would it then return a list of values? So all files within the locust
I think it
folder?
returns the list, but without the values, just the file names.
File names.
Yeah, it's only the file names.
And the config.yaml file that you have here, where does this go into Keptn? So I assume if I want to use this, I do a kubectl apply of the job executor service. So I have my job executor service running. This will then take care of fetching orchestrating the jobs, so to say. And for the usage perspective, where do I add the config.yaml for my jobs?
So it's pretty much in the same directory for any other services. So here you have locust, and there we have our job directory, and there's the config YAML. So just pretty basic.
Okay, and I also it's per stage or per environment, so I can define different jobs.
Yeah, exactly. Here we have it for the dev stage.
Cool. Awesome. I think this makes a lot of sense. So I'm, and I think also the developer community will really appreciate this. That it seems very easy to use a service where there is no Keptn service yet. There might be some limitations, as also Christian mentioned, such as doing a kubectl apply that might be a little bit risky inside of this template, but if there might also be, would it work to also have, let's say, a more sophisticated bash script in the files section and then execute the bash script that was just fetched?
I mean, that should certainly be possible. So we just need to edit the permissions for a bash image, like make it executable and then just execute it. Yeah, it should be possible.
Cool. Yeah, I think there's a lot of possibilities. Cool.
By the way, if you know GitLab CI and it feels familiar, I think it does. So I think the names are a little bit different in GitLab CI, but you also specify an image and a script, and then you can do whatever you want. So for those people coming from GitLab CI, this is certainly a nice transition phase. Let's put it like this.
Just one remark, but I'm still more interested in why you came up with that. But when I take a look at the example run locust starting at line 15, here you are listening to a test triggered event and then you execute two subtasks. The first one, run the locust test and then prepare the results. And there would have been another way to model this by adding this a separate task to the shipyard.
Exactly, yeah.
It would have been another way.
Yep.
But you solved it.
For this was just an example before when Dieter mentioned that you can also define multiple tasks. I just copied it in there. But I think the cleaner way would definitely be just like defined here, have two test tasks.
Could be, but as you showed us, there are other ways to think about this problem, because what I now understand is that test triggered event is kind of good enough from the granularity of telling you that you have to execute a test, but then the test itself is again broken down into subtasks, so to say.
Yeah, you could see it like that.
The beauty of defining it within the shipyard would be that you actually see several steps on first glance.
True, and you share it then across all services that are in the same project. And here you provide an option to have it then service dependent, because another service can have another config.yaml that has another step in there. Provides quite a lot of flexibility and options.
And you would see the fine-grained tasks in the bridge more easily if you have it in the shipyard file.
In the shipyard, yeah, yeah, that's true.
So how does this service compare to the, how is it called? I think there was a service called generic executor service or something like that.
Yeah, it's basically the Kubernetes job. So the generic executor service runs everything in process as far as I've seen. But here you actually spin up a new Kubernetes job and actually tell it which image to run.
Yeah, I think the generic executor service can execute Python script, it can execute bash scripts, but for binaries that are not yet part of the image of the generic executor service, it won't work. So you cannot execute locust, for example. You could do the first part with bash, but I think locust or the test cafe won't work as the image is not available, the binary is not available.
Just a stupid question, but when you execute this task, the run locust task, are the tasks itself executed in the same job, or are there two different jobs?
No, these are actually two different jobs.
Okay, and they share, or how does the second task gets the result from the first one?
Maybe that's just a stupid example on my side.
Yeah, actually, yeah.
Okay.
This doesn't make any sense because yeah, I just checked in the code base and I remembered it wrong.
All right. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but that's no problem. So for now, it's one task execution per job name, basically, and it will be executed in the first return value will be returned and mapped as a error or as a success.
Yeah, and the jobs are also running in succession. So the second one just starts if the first one finishes, and there is some polling involved, which checks the status of the job every 2 seconds. And if that one is successful, then the second one is spun up.
Cool. Yeah, I think there's a lot to experiment now with this job executor service. It's already released, so you can find it on Keptn Sandbox. We'll also put the link into the meeting documentation. It's the job executor service. I assume, I've not checked today, but I assume there are some README instructions how to install it and how to use it, where to put the file.
Yeah, exactly. We prepared this already, and hopefully there shouldn't be too much errors in there. But
yeah, that is now that is not a job for the Keptn community to find all the edge cases and everything that is not part of a 0.1.0 release, because I think it already can do a lot of things, and it's really cool. So it will really speed up the new integrations we can build. I'm really excited to give it a try. So are there any more questions for Dieter or for Dominic? Because if not, Then thank you so much to both of you for doing the great demo and also the great presentation on really sharing why you built this. And then I would like to continue on the agenda for today. Maybe I can just share my screen again. We just have 2 more agenda items. Hopefully we can take it in the last 7 minutes. So we do it. I'm already sharing, I think. So the agenda item, I think this was added by Aditya. So if you want to share what you want to discuss here, and then also Priya can share his comments.
Jürgen, can you open that issue?
Sure. Here we go.
So in the templating part, I was reading. Is my voice clear? Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in the template part, I was reading that we have to give the support for the basic construct to build a custom payload. So by that, I understand that we have to provide some basic YAML file or to the user so they can add their custom payload in that. But in the acceptance criteria, you have written that user can define their template. So that those things, I'm confusing between those things. Like for user to define the template, will it be a completely from the ground zero that they have to write whole YAML, or else they have to use some basic construct which we have provided, something like that.
Okay. So if like my comment on this is that regarding the payload that we talked earlier, so if you think about that, Keptn sends cloud events, and it's they have a predefined structure. So we know from the Keptn specification how the cloud event in Keptn looks like. But what needs to be done is to define a way for a user to easily use some kind of a template to map the Keptn cloud event into another structured payload. Let's say we cannot just send a cloud event to, I don't know, to GitHub or to some kind of other webhook, because it has to be in a structured format for the target system. And this structured format for the target system should easily allow to build this and then use placeholders of the Keptn cloud event to fill them in, maybe even with some possibilities, such as we've written here, that to create a new date or to create the random ID if that is needed for the target system. Sometimes you have to send the payload to a target system with a post request. Maybe you have to specify some random ID. This is not part of the Keptn cloud event. So this kind of templating should also be able to provide the ability to attach the current date, to attach a random ID, maybe to attach some other things, maybe to map an integer to a string or vice versa. So this is part of this. Maybe it's not clearly defined here, but this is the part of the let's say a research task, how this templating can look like and how others are doing this.
Okay. So my basic understanding is we have to parse the Keptn event and then use the placeholder. Like we user have defined the placeholder in their template and fill those placeholder by the event which we have passed from the cloud event. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, clear.
Does this clarify the question?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Okay. And then we have another question, I think related to the same issue, from Priya.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so hello everyone, thanks for having me. I would just like to ask that how much time do we have? Because if not, then I can maybe share my like comments on Slack, and then you guys can review that.
Yes, so officially the meeting ends in 2 minutes. What I think would be the best approach here, that we can discuss it directly on the issue, or we can also discuss it on Slack and then put the results directly on the issue, so that also for the others or everyone else that wants to follow up can see it there. And we can probably come up with an example about a Keptn payload and an example payload for a target system, and then also discuss maybe how this can look like.
Yeah, okay. But so within the short time that I have, I just wanted to run you by you guys that I saw that Kubernetes has something called admission controller webhooks, where they can both, like, I send a webhook, I send a request to it, and then Kubernetes will either mutate it if required, and then after the required authentication and authorization, then it goes to like the Kubernetes cluster, and does whatever operations that that we as a user ask it for to perform. So I was wondering if their implementation, where they have authentication, which in their case is like TLS, you need to generate the SSL certificates for the domain name of your webhook that you have, and then like I saw how in the generic executor service, you have to like name your scripts in a way which would let the service know that which events is this script pertaining to. But in case of Kubernetes, I saw that how you can restrict that script to run on particular pods, and even in that pod, you can restrict it to certain operations only. So I think in this case, we can do the same. We can provide the same kind of configuration, which would let user to like define the webhook, so the domain name and everything, certificate, and also the event they want the webhook to be related to. So that was what I was thinking.
Yeah, I think so. The idea, it looks like you already did some research on this, and I'm not yet sure what is the best technical way to achieve it. I guess there might be different approaches to it, but we could also take this discussion on Slack or directly on the issue and follow up with the technical discussion there.
Yeah,
or,
sure.
If there's time for next week, we again have 2 presentations from the Keptn community in 2 weeks' time, but we can also again reserve a little bit of time for questions.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Cool. Okay, so we are at the end of the agenda. Hopefully, most of the questions have been addressed. We're also at the time at the top of the hour. So thanks everyone for joining. Especially a big thank you to Dieter and Dominic for presenting this. It was really great that you shared the Job Executor Service. I will make sure to add here also the URL so everyone can give it a try. If you give it a try, please share your thoughts, opinions, feedback in the Keptn Slack. You will find the 2 maintainers of the service also in the Keptn Slack, and I'm pretty sure they are also eager to hear your feedback on this. So thanks everyone, and see you all. I guess we still have to decide if there is a meeting next week, because a lot of Keptn maintainers might be out of office. So this will be announced in the Keptn Slack. And then in 2 weeks' time, we again have a Keptn community and developer meeting. So thanks everyone. It was great to have you all here. It was a big crowd today, and see you all next week or in 2 weeks' time.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, bye.
Bye.